kind of make sure that I was filming. Yeah, so there's my folder again. So the first novel that we read in that class was The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I have mixed thoughts about this book because in the beginning I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for him, you know, like the main character's Holden Caulfield. And okay, so I'll just go. At the beginning of the book, I felt really, really sad for him. Like, you know, he doesn't have his parents. He's off at boarding school. You know, he loves his sister, but he doesn't get to see her. And his older brother, you know, lives like, you know, he's like, you know, had to be away from his entire family for like a really long time. And as the book went on, I got really annoyed with him. And I know that like, with The Catcher in the Rye, there are like 2 ways that people usually tend to think about him. A, he's really annoying, or B, you feel super sorry for him. And I felt both all while reading this book. I'm just kind of flipping through and looking at some of my notes because I did make some notes. Usually about like vocabulary words that I wasn't exactly sure what they were. I wrote like several times, how old is he, until I finally figured it out, and I don't actually remember how old he is. But I was just wondering because like he smokes and drinks and stuff, and I know this was, you know, like written and set several years ago, but you know, I was just like, wow, how is he getting all this alcohol and stuff? And I think it's funny that he only tells you what he wants to. My class, when we were doing discussion, we were wondering if maybe he wrote this book like for, like, I mean the main character, obviously not J.D. Salinger, but if like the main character is like, this is like an assignment from like a psychologist or something. Because, you know, like he's still mourning the loss of his brother, like because he had 2 brothers and a sister, and one of his brothers passed away. And so he like, well, go, if you watched my other video about books or stories that we read, you will know that a lot of the stories that we read, people are going crazy. And like, you know, he goes crazy when his brother dies, and I mean, I kind of think it's like a natural response. You know, people are like, you know, how did this happen? Like, especially when it's like a traumatic death. You know, if it's like, you know, like your grandma or your grandpa, and they're getting older and you're kind of expecting it, then it's not, you know, you like, maybe you don't get as angry. But if it's something, you know, like someone dies in a car accident, you're gonna, like, you know, probably show a lot more emotion. At least that's how I work. Yeah, so when his brother dies, he like goes in the garage and like breaks all the windows and everything, and he like breaks his hand, and so that like his hand is like forever like kind of like, it always like hurts, which like reminds him of his brother, and so it kind of makes him depressed. And his parents think that he needs to like go to, you know, just like go away, so because, you know, like they live in New York and they have to, you know, keep up appearances, and if you have a son that's going crazy, then you aren't, you know, you shouldn't be in the upper class, and so they send him away to boarding school. I think doing that like hurt him a lot more than if he would have been able to stay home. I know that, like, you know, in today's world, you know, he would need tons and tons of therapy to get over the loss of his brother, and also getting abandoned by his family. So yeah, we were kind of wondering if maybe this was like a book written, like the narrator wrote for a psychologist. Something that really bothers me is like the entire story. He's calling everybody phonies, and I know that I am not the first person to think this. I'm not saying that I am. But the entire story, he's calling everyone a phony, when he himself is the biggest phony ever. He doesn't like people because they lie. He doesn't like people because of the way they look. He doesn't like people for various reasons. And he himself is one of the biggest phonies on the planet. He's failed 4 different schools. He like, you know, he's like, you know, people are like so stupid and stuff, but he's failed 4 different schools. I'm not saying that he's stupid though, because I know that he's smart. He just doesn't have motivation to do his assignments and stuff, and so that's why he's gotten kicked out, because of his poor grades, because he just doesn't care. I also think that maybe he was closer to his family, he would care. And his sister, who's younger than him, he adores her. She is the only one that he doesn't call a phony in the entire story. He adores his little sister, and he like, you know, he says that she's smarter than him. And I think that maybe if he could have stayed with the family and had the influence of his sister, that maybe he would have done better in school. That's just my thought. I don't know if it's right or not. I didn't even try and rhyme, but I did. What other thoughts do I have on this book? I will look at my notes. For each book, we had to write 5 different journals. So here are my journals. Oh, there's one. I got 25 points out of 25, so I was pretty happy about that. Yeah, so he only really has one person that like stands up for him, and that's at the very beginning of the book. His teacher, Mr. Spencer. He tries to get him on track, and then Holden just decides, you know, this is a load of bull, and I'm going to leave. So he was gonna get kicked out of school like at the beginning of Christmas break, but he decides to leave early because he just doesn't want to stay at school anymore. When he gets in a fight with his roommate, and that's like it's a pretty nasty fight. Looking over my journals to find stuff to talk about. He goes on a date with a girl that he doesn't even like because just because he wants to go on a date. Yeah, that's not funny like at all. I think I've like touched on the points that I've made in my journal. In the end, you know, he's like going home and he gets to see his sister, who he, like I said, already adores. And because this whole book, at least my version, is 214 pages, and it's all about like 2 or 3 days. I think it's just supposed to be about this like one weekend, like when because I think he leaves school Friday night, and then like the story ends, I think, on Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember specifically, but his sister really, really misses him, and so he like sees her before, like, and so he can't go home because then his parents will know that he got kicked out of another school, and he wants to kind of delay that as much as possible. So he has to find somewhere else to stay, but he does get to talk with his sister, and his sister's like, you know, please stay, and like please come home and don't like run off, because his older brother lives in California, and so he was going to go live with his older brother, but she begged for him to stay, and she said that she wasn't going to go back to school unless he stayed, and so he stayed. And that's how the story ends. Let's see. He uses a lot of language. I don't recommend people read this if they get extremely offended by bad words, because it uses a lot of bad language. And maybe, you know, some people in middle school would probably be able to read it, but I know probably high school would be a better age to read it if you were thinking about reading it. So I will see you in the next video. Bye!